from United States Congressman Thaddeus McCotter, obviously of here in Michigan, and joins me now. Congressman McCotter, always a pleasure. Thanks for being with us today.
Oh, thanks for having me back.
Thanks so much. Well, first of all, just your general first thoughts and impressions as you're sitting there listening to the president. What kind of stuff was going through your mind listening to his presentation?
Well, in fairness to the president, anytime an incumbent president gives a State of the Union in an election year, there's going to be some political overtones and there'll be policy. So my job, I think the job of the members of Congress, is to focus on the policy because the politics will come later. And unfortunately, the philosophical premises the president comes from are outdated, they're failed, and they're non-sustainable in the 21st century, Bob. And let me just explain a couple. First, he believes still, despite all evidence to the contrary, that the economy is a zero-sum game, where there's only so much money and it's up to government to redistribute it as it sees fit. That is fundamentally wrong. The president also believes that we can have the government picking winners and losers. That's fundamentally wrong. We've seen, if you look no further than Solyndra. You've got the president talking about having a tax and spend big government, which is, we in Michigan know, is the exact opposite of what was necessary with our restructured auto industry. Unfortunately, the president's policies are outdated. They're like 1970s policies, and he's trying to keep them in the 21st century because, unfortunately, again, for the American people, he's wedded to a big government model that is as outdated as I would argue, as is any massive bureaucracy, be it in the private or public sector in the 21st century.
I guess what's so frustrating for me, and this is me watching it on television, I can't even imagine sitting in the chamber, and it's all I can do to keep from Joe Wilsoning my TV. You lie, let alone physically sitting there. But the president seems to. He seems to say the things that the American public agrees with, but is in direct contradiction to what his actual policy and position. He talks about, small. He'll talk about smaller government, but then what he really pushes for is bigger government. He talks about less dependency on foreign oil and how we need to drill for oil and we need to tap our resources. But he shuts down our offshore drilling and he says no to the Keystone Pipeline. I mean, I see so many cases where his rhetoric doesn't match his actual policy, but he says the things he knows Americans want to hear.
Right. I think you're absolutely right. And what happens is it's a self-contradictory speech. And whether he knows it or not, I don't want to speculate, but I can tell you that on its face. As somebody who studied history, one of the things as a Republican that I found particularly egregious was when he deliberately misquoted Lincoln. And if you look in the actual text of the speech, he didn't put quotation marks around what Abraham Lincoln said. And that was done for a reason. Because as you recall, Bob, and this is part of the underlying philosophical errors that he commits, is Lincoln said government should do for people what they cannot do for themselves, right?
Right.
We've all heard that quote.
Right.
What the president says is that government should do what they can't do better for themselves on their own. Now, that's basically his justification for big government. He's deliberately trying to use a Republican, an American icon to justify his actions, and he did it deliberately.
Right.
To me, that's exactly the type of self-contradictory, misleading thing that is so unfortunate. Now, look, if your policies are good, they're going to work, and the people will vote for you. If they're bad, they're going to fail, and they're not. And for us, we're seeing that his policies failed, and I would argue that in the 21st century, they're doomed.
You know what I thought was interesting last night as well? In a 65-minute speech,